My name is Nikki. I'm from South Africa. COVID, 2020. Where does one even start? I was working in the Middle East. I lost my job due to COVID because I couldn't return. But I actually went on vacation in February. I was back in South Africa, and then I was in LA and Las Vegas when COVID hit and the world started shutting down. I was walking the Las Vegas Strip by myself. It was absolutely insane. I eventually decided that it was in my best interest to return to South Africa, of which I was placed in a horrendous quarantine facility. I actually worked on the cruise ships for many, many years, so isolation and the solitude is it's easy for me. But being locked in a hotel room and having some of your human rights stripped, as many of the quarantine facilities all around the world experienced, that's a whole nother level. I managed to get back to South Africa. I was then moving my dad, who was sick with, he was in remission from cancer, from several cancer operations, but he had quite severe dementia at the age of 69. And I had purchased property and moved him to Durban so that I could spend time with him and just have a better environment and a house where he could be taken care of. And it wasn't about after a month after buying and selling a house and trying to get from Johannesburg to a different province to Durban and all of the COVID stuff going on. It was madness. Managed to get him here, but within a month he deteriorated quite quickly, and had to send him for tests, and it turned out that the cancer was back. I felt like I was in a situation where I was playing God, because I was dealing with a surgeon, oncologist, and a brain doctor. And the brain doctor was telling me that he wouldn't survive the surgery to remove the cancer. And the surgeon and oncologist were telling me if they didn't remove the cancer, he would die from constipation. So it was a really tough thing. Having someone with dementia, it gets to the point where they do forget things, and you have to speak to them quite childlike to communicate. There's a certain amount of love and tenderness and care that must go into it. And the hardest thing for me was putting him in hospital and not knowing if I would see him again. That was the first hard thing with COVID, is that I couldn't protect him. I was so scared that he was going to get COVID in the hospital and die, another statistic of a global worldwide pandemic, of whatever grand result of all of this you wish it to be. And but luckily at that time, it was a blessing that it just allowed that the patient could have a visitor, but only for half an hour a day. My dad was in a sealed off room by himself, where he didn't have any stimulation. Within a few days, he went completely blind. And he couldn't really use his hands and stuff much more, and I kept going, and for the half an hour that I could see him and trying to put on the TV a bit for him or something, and he just got worse. So I decided to bring him home for a few days to spoil him as much as I could, which I'll never ever regret doing. It was the best time. And a few days later, I had to call an ambulance and take him back to hospital. And days leading up to the surgery, which was my only option, he deteriorated more and more every day, because we couldn't see him, we couldn't give him the attention and the care to just stimulate his brain a bit more. He came out of the surgery and he was on life support for about a week. He came out of that and was conscious for about 2 days. I went to go and see him, and he didn't recognize who I was. And the surgeon was there, and I still said to her, his mind's going. He's not making any sense. She said, no, he's fine. He's eating. He's talking. The next morning she called and told me to come to the hospital, and she said that she was busy attending to him. She walked out. The nurses walked in literally 10 seconds after they'd just cleared away all his stuff after feeding him, and he was gone. My father passed away a few days before the anniversary of my mother's passing, and the guy I was seeing at the time had the audacity to break up with me via a text message on the day of my dad's memorial. So 2020 really hasn't been filled with great experiences, and I do believe that this COVID pandemic stuff has separated us so much physically. We have connected a lot in the way we are communicating with technology and stuff now across the world. But at the same time, people still need that personal, tender, loving care. And I do believe that we might have been able to spend a bit more time with him if we had been allowed to have regular visiting hours at the hospital. In the old days. How crazy is that to say? So, yeah, COVID really hasn't been kind. And as for what it holds for the rest of us going forward, who knows? Each country has a different governing system at the moment, different beliefs, different cultures, and we just don't know how it's all going to play out. And things have been quite hectic here in South Africa. I'm going to the shop to get some groceries. Only going out basically to get essentials with the amount of cases going on at the moment, as well as the new strain of COVID in South Africa. There's lots of corruption going on within the government, money going missing. We've had load shedding for about 13 years. We have scheduled power cuts. It's very, very hot at the moment. It's about 34 degrees Celsius. We're in the middle of summer. But when I go to like a mall or especially a shop like this, I feel more comfortable wearing pants so that I can keep my cell phone and my car keys on me and not in my handbag. It's a very dangerous country. We do have one of the higher crime and rape rates in the world. And we have about a 30% unemployment rate at the moment. And, you know, aside from the original problems of crime and the other stuff we had going on here, COVID is really just pushing it to the next level. Majority of the malls do have sanitizers when you walk in, but the amount of people using them is another story. Unfortunately, this mall has one that you physically have to touch on the outside of the wall. I don't see anybody ever using it. I personally don't touch it myself. I walk around with sanitizer in my hand so that I'm spraying as I'm touching, I'm literally spraying. Yeah, unfortunately, not enough people are taking responsibility. So one of the major things that happened when COVID hit is our government banned cigarettes, and then there was allegations of members within Parliament's family members bootlegging the cigarettes. So you could still buy cigarettes on the black market, but at 4 times the price. They also banned the alcohol, and then people were obviously finding ways to bootleg alcohol and making home breweries. There was actually quite a few fatalities from that, unfortunately. So just after Christmas, we went into a harder lockdown again. We were put on curfew from 9 till 6 a.m., 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. The beaches are closed, and we have another alcohol ban to, they say, reduce the trauma cases, which I can understand, but at the same time, people can still get access to it. So it is causing a lot more underneath the surface than you know, there's always it's not just black and white, it's grey. So yeah, we're going to take a walk into the mall now so I can show you roughly what's going on. And you will notice the guys in reflective orange jackets, they're actually car guards. So you pay a car guard to watch your car whenever you're generally parking in most spaces in South Africa. There'll always be a car guard, and when you come out and you're done with whatever you're doing, you'll just pay him whatever change or whatever you deem fit for looking after your car. Okay, so let's get going. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable to be walking with my cell phone in my hand. Okay, let's go. So here you always, where I am, and there's that little sanitizer outside that I was talking about that nobody uses. But I've got my handy sanitizer right here, so let me quickly do that. Masks for sale. So luckily I have a pharmacy right here and a grocery store. And there's a few little clothing shops in this mall. So there we go. And closed. We're waiting to see when the ban will be lifted again. The cases have gone down by about 100,000 active cases in the last about 4 weeks. But do we know if we can actually trust those cases? How does putting a curfew, a ban on alcohol, and closing beaches drop the cases? I don't know. Very uncertain times. Let's see if anybody's sanitizing coming in. No. Don't see anybody going to the little white sanitizer thing. No, you have some more people coming in. Not happening. Okay, I'm starting to feel a bit uncomfortable now. I'm going to go and do my shopping and put my phone away. It's the 11th of February and our active COVID cases have decreased from 177,000 to 60,000 in the last few weeks in South Africa. Our bottle stores have reopened. We can purchase alcohol between Monday and Thursday. Our beaches are open. We can consume alcohol in restaurants and bars. And the curfew's been lifted. You have to be home by 11 p.m. So everybody's quite happy to go back to some type of normalcy, if you'd like to call it that, 1,000 to 60,000 in the last few weeks in South Africa. Our bottle stores have reopened. We can purchase alcohol between Monday and Thursday. Our beaches are open. We can consume alcohol in restaurants and bars. And the curfew's been lifted. You have to be home by 11 p.m. So everybody's quite happy to go back to some type of normalcy, if you'd like to call it that. But can we really trust these figures that have come from the same corrupt government that's been driving the country into the ground? I just don't know. Just in general, walking around in the public, I'm not seeing people sanitizing. I'm not seeing people social distancing. I had to drive through a rural area a couple of days ago and there wasn't even people weren't even wearing masks. So we can only hope and pray this is true. I need to go to Johannesburg for dental surgery in a few weeks, and I'm going to do the 8-hour drive because I just don't feel safe sitting next to somebody on a plane. Apparently the vaccinations that have been ordered might not be as effective against this new COVID strain or variant. So let's see what the future holds. My personal opinion, I'm staying at home. only going out, still continuing to get groceries and essentials as needed. And let's hope and pray that this pandemic will soon be a thing of the past and that our world can be reached.